The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Hidden Gems in Dynamics GP Navigation Lists. My name is Mike McPhilomy. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at Njevity, and today we are joined by Amber Bell, who has a company, Training Dynamo, and she specializes specifically in Dynamics GP training. So, and Amber's actually going to be doing a webinar for us, a year-end webinar on December 12th. So just give you a little taste of what type of training Amber provides. So Amber, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this for us today. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you since I know everybody is excited to see and hear what you're going to be talking about.
Well, thank you very much, and welcome everybody to today's session. We're talking about one of my favorite hidden gems in Dynamics GP, which is navigation lists. A lot of times I'll go to clients and they've never opened or used navigation lists. Sometimes there's even people that'll go, oh, it's too slow, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. So today, by the end, I hope that you're going to become just as big of a fan of navigation lists as I am. So first thing we're going to do is go ahead and make sure my slides are going to go forward. Here we go. So that's a picture of me. My name's Amber. I've been a GP consultant since about 1999. And I've been working on my own as an independent consultant, working with partners like Njevity, providing them with training materials and books and all kinds of things to help their customers for about 2.5 years now. So it's been really nice to be able to get to know lots of people all over the world, really, on my own and helping out. I do a lot with the GP user group, or GPUG as it's affectionately known. If you're not a member of GPUG, I highly recommend checking them out. There's a lot of ways to get additional support and help, and that's one of the ways I've actually gotten to know the folks at Njevity is through GPUG. I also help with the GP credentialing test, and I'm an instructor, and I wrote the year-end closing book that we'll talk about later today, just to let you know about that event that we're doing. Next, as you guys know, I'm working with Njevity. They work very, very hard to improve the life and success of their customers and partners and all of that. They're a great team, so you guys are really fortunate to have, honestly, one of the best teams out there. So keep working with them. They're a great team, and I'm sure that anything you need, they're going to jump to make sure that they get it done for you. So here's the agenda for today. We're going to be going through navigation list basics and how to create what are favorites or saved navigation lists. Navigation lists are different than smart lists. I'm going to explain some of the differences and where you might want to use a navigation list versus a smart list or vice versa today. We're also going to talk about how to customize the columns, the action pane, and some security or sharing. So here we go. This is a navigation list. So I have Power GP Online up and running, which I have here. I also have on-premise GP running as well. So I know some of you joining might not be using Power GP Online, so it works for both. If I come into GP here, you can see that I have options for navigation list, which will run. I'll get a list of my customers here. If I go into Power GP Online, I can do the same kind of thing. Click on sales. I'll click on customers, and we'll let that load. So as that's loading, we're just going to talk about the different parts. The top section is the action pane. So the action pane is going to be where you can do things like apply holds, delete, change email settings, do transactions, all that, print reports. So there's a lot of actions involved. If you go into regular smart list, so I'll just pull up my regular smart list while the other one's up over there. If I go into regular smart list, I can get a similar list. I can go under sales and I can do customers. Oops, that's prospects, but we'll go to customers. I can get a similar list, but I can't do anything at the top. I can't create a new transaction. I can't put things on hold. I can't run aging. So smart list is great if you're doing a query, but if you want to actually have actions behind it, I'm going to click a box and apply a hold and hit my refresh. And now that customer's on hold and I have a visual icon for that. You get that through navigation list. If I go over into Power GP Online, you'll see here. Now that didn't connect. I just happened to put one on hold from one and the other. They're two separate. I'm running them separately. But here I can run a remove hold. And then if I hit refresh, you'll see that they're off of hold. I can also do different transactions. So clicking this and going right into payments. And that's going to autofill the customer ID for me. So I've got actions, I've got ability to jump right to transactions, ability to jump right to reports. So that's one of the features that make it different, is this top bar here that's called the action pane. Another feature that makes it different than regular smart lists is the option down here for the information pane. So if I'm in a navigation list for customers, I can do this for other things as well, for vendors, for items. As I click on the item in the navigation list, I'll just uncheck this one, you'll see that down here it gives me information. So I don't have that much test data here, so I'll show you it on my other company. As I click here, you'll see I see the last time they paid, the total year-to-date sales, the terms, the average days to pay. If I go into something like in sales and I go to sales order transactions, as I click on the transactions, the inquiry gets even better. As I click on the inquiry here, I can see what items are on the sales transaction or on my returns or anything like that. So as I click on them, you can see, this is a better one, you can see that I can see multiple items that are listed. If I go into Power GP Online, we'll go into purchasing, and I'll show you for POs that I have the same option for Power GP Online, where I'm going to have that preview or information pane at the bottom. So if I go over here, I click on my PO, you'll see here I've got a PO for yellow shirts and red shirts. I just did a fake PO for that yesterday to show you guys what you can do. So there's lots of things that make it different. But one of the things, again, is depending on what navigation list I'm in, you can see that I can take this navigation or this item, and now it lights up. I can apply holds. I can edit. If it hasn't been printed for POs, I could delete it if I want to copy it to a new PO. And we'll get into more options about that, receiving as well, when we get into that section. So it looks like somebody might have a question. Let's just click this and see. Is this webinar just for people with power user access? No, not at all. It's for everybody. So you don't need to be a power user for these to work. When I say Power GP Online, that's just the name for the product from Njevity. That's their GP Online tool that you guys could use if you guys wanted to have GP hosted. But as you can see, I'm running GP over here. I'm just using this as a regular on-premise, and it has nothing to do with being a power user in GP or a Power GP Online user. It works for both regular GP hosted or in the cloud or web client. They all have access to navigation lists. So this works for all kinds of users. Hopefully that answers your question. If it did, you can put a note in the questions. If it did not, you can tell me, Amber, you did not answer my question, and I'll try to figure it out. Next. Now, since we had the question about whether or not this webinar is just for Power GP Online users, it is not. These work for people using GP on-premise or GP traditional. If you are using traditional GP and at some point you've enabled SQL reports, and which also has a tool called Business Analyzer, what I've found is that people that have Business Analyzer running, when they go to open a navigation list, so if I come in and I'm in here and I click this, I don't have Business Analyzer turned on my machine, but if I clicked this and I got a whole bunch of pop-ups with errors, and then over here it's trying to generate a chart or a graph, it makes it run very slow, and it can also run errors if you don't have the right security. So inside these slides, and if you need this script, you can always email. At the end, I'll give you Melissa's email, and she can forward you these scripts. This will turn that off if you're running GP locally. If you're using Power GP Online, they've turned off Business Analyzer to make it run quickly. Also, when you get GP 2018 R2, which is the new version that's coming out now, that version, enough people complained about how Business Analyzer was slowing down this feature, they've actually turned it off by default. If you're not running the newer GP, or you don't want to run that script, or you don't have access to, if you click on your navigation list, I would see here under Show Hide, I would see Business Analyzer. I could uncheck that. That's done per user. When I save a list, I would have an option when I go to Customize. And right here where I've got these checkboxes, you would see one that says Show Business Analyzer, and I could uncheck that and save that change with the list. But again, if you're running GP and you're running a version older than 2018 R2, and you're running it on premise or running it hosted, a different way, you may have issues with opening navigation lists, and running these two scripts will fix that for existing navigation lists, and going forward, it'll fix that to not show Business Analyzer. So that'll make it run quickly. If I've worked with people that have been told, oh, don't use those, they're too slow, and this is the reason why. So I wanted to right away mention the fix for that. Easy to do, and if you need help with that, you can always put a support case in with Njevity, and they'll help you out if you can't figure it out. Okay. So we're going to create a navigation list favorite. So we were looking at customers, and I want you to see something. When I'm in a navigation list, the very first top one, see how it says read only right at the top? When I go into my navigation list, and again, this will work both the regular and the Power GP Online. If I go into, this says vendors, it'll work for vendors, it works for customers, it works for GL accounts, it works for items. See how it says read only? If I click on this, I can't add or click customize. I can't add, remove columns. I can't do anything. I actually have to save it first. So we're going to save this as, and we'll call this vendor list. I created one yesterday and setting this up called Vendor Center. The reason I did that is if anyone's ever used something like QuickBooks, you might be used to having that vendor page that you can click on in QuickBooks. And I wanted to kind of mirror that, and I'll show you what I did with that in a minute. We're going to just say vendor list for now. And you'll see here's my vendor list. I don't have that many vendors on my test company here, so I'll show you it in both Power GP Online and my local as well. But as soon as I've saved it, it lights up that I can customize. So I can click right here and say customize. And now I can turn things off or on. I can change the visibility. If you have multiple companies, you may have a navigation list that only really applies to the one company. So you could switch this to be only visible in this company. Next, you can also turn off or on the sections, turn off or on the filter, turn off or on the actions, turn off or on the information. If you had Business Analyzer, you could turn off and on Business Analyzer. We're going to click on columns. And for my vendor, I don't particularly care about their phone or their contact, but I want to know their current balance. Maybe I also want to know their tax ID. Maybe I want to know their payment priority. If you're using workflow, I can also see workflow information. We're just going to keep it simple. And I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And now I can see my vendor ID, and I can see my current balance. We'll take a look at that on my company over here. So I'm going to go into purchasing. I'm going to hit the little arrow by my vendors. You'll see my one, I created one called Vendor Center over here. So over here, I have current balance is not 0, and the status is active. So now I've got my vendor, I've got their name, I've got their current balance. So I can see all of that information in one place. I can see a preview of what their balance is. I don't need that much space on there. I made that a little too big. And I can check the box by these if I wanted, and again, jump into any of these windows. Now you'll notice on mine, I tried to mirror what you might have seen if you've ever used QuickBooks. They have new vendor, they call it enter bills, credit memo, payment, manual payment. I'm going to do that over in Power GP Online. So we're going to pull my Power GP Online up, and we're going to customize this top toolbar. So what I'm going to do is just minimize this a little bit so I can see both at the same time. So how I'm going to customize that is I'm going to click this, and I'm going to go down to customize. Move this up a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to click on action pane. And now we're going to see what I want to add, what I want to remove, what I want to do. So we're going to go into actions. And I actually have new that I moved up. So we're going to move the new up. We don't have workflow enabled, so even though that action group is there, it's not going to show because it's not turned on. I'm leaving it there because later if I want to turn on workflow, I don't have to re-add that group. Under new, you can see that right now I have new and it says vendor, but I want to rename it to say new vendor. So I'm just going to click here and say new vendor. Then the next one is enter bills. That's what it's called in QuickBooks. And again, if nobody has used QuickBooks in the past, no problem. I just get a lot of clients that come off of QuickBooks and jump into GP. Next thing is I want to be able to do a credit memo. So I'm going to move this up a little bit. And my user doesn't use POs. So we're just going to remove that. We're going to remove this. We're just simplifying it so it makes it what this user really does. And we're going to just put credit memo. Now, I could have left those other ones on there, all that kind of stuff, but we're just for right now going to make it look similar. This one that says payment, I'm going to change that to say manual payment. And you'll notice that as I'm on each of those items, I can have it as a priority primary, secondary, or overflow. We're going to use one of these as an example in just a second. I'm going to move it down. But first thing I'm going to do is make sure these are all primary and large. I don't need standard PO. That was extra. We'll take that out. So I have new vendor, credit memo, and I must have accidentally removed the wrong one. So we're going to add the create new enter invoice. So we'll see where that is at. Here we go. And again, just click in here. I'm going to make it primary and large. And then we'll go here, move this up, primary and large, primary and large. And this one right now is in overflow, and this bottom one is in primary and small. And I'm leaving them weird on purpose because I want you to see what it looks like, and then we can make some adjustments. I'm going to click save. I'm going to click somewhere else and then come back because that'll refresh that top bar. So we'll come back to it. And if I come back in, you can see here's my vendor list. That's the one I just started working on today. And you see how now we've got enter bills, and then we've got credit memo, manual payment. They're smaller. If I click this and I go down to customize, and I click on my action pane, and I click on my new, and I pick my credit memo, and I make it primary, and I make it large, and click OK, and click save. And again, I click on something else, and then I come right back. That'll refresh it. Now you can see our credit memo is the larger icon. And I could do the same thing again with manual payment. So I can go through these and I can adjust what is seen. If this user is not allowed to delete or create new vendors, I could take away options to edit the vendor. I could take away the option to put holds. I could take, so I can clean it up so that it's what that user wants to see. Now, if you get this set up exactly the way that you like it, you can click on this and you can add it in two places, to the navigation pane as a shortcut or the home page. We can do the same thing in Power GP Online. Click this list, add it to the navigation pane, add it to the home page. Now, I would pick one or the other, but for today, I'm putting it in both places because I want you guys to see what it looks like. So I'm going back to home. And you can see here I've got my vendor list, and I can click that right there, and then I jump right to that list. So if you think about, we could give somebody a list of the vendors on their homepage, right, when they log in, and they could click that, and now they're working, and they can come in, enter a credit memo. it autofills that vendor ID, it autofills that information and puts that into that transaction window. Again, if I come over into my local GP, check the box, click manual payment, I went and paid my American Express online, I could come in here and say we went online and paid that. So all that's done, there's actions and there's ways to do that online. Now, if we go over in the local GP, the one that's not online, you can do a couple extra things like drag and drop, but you can move those columns very, very easily in Power GP Online. It's just the web client's a little different for how it changes. So now I've got my nice list here with Power GP Online. I also have a cool inquiry over here of any vendor activity. That's a custom thing with the Power GP Online. We're going to go ahead and close that. And I don't need to save changes. We're just going to close that. So again, the things that make this different than regular GP is this top toolbar called the action pane and the bottom, which is called the preview pane. We're going to keep going through. Okay. When you want to create or change a navigation list, you have to save it first. That's required to be able to make any changes. Otherwise, it's just going to be the default out of the box list. So we have a slide just showing what we did where we customized the columns. You can move columns up or down, and you can remove columns by checking or unchecking add or remove columns. Okay. You can customize the action pane by clicking on action pane, and then this is where we were able to move those around, rename them by changing the action name. You can also change the whole group name if you wanted as well. I did a sample at a GP event where, see if this one is the one I did. I changed this because this go-to actually, it does reports, but it also will go to Excel. So I put in the name of that go-to, I went in here and customized an action pane. So you could even rename those bottom labels. And we can do that both here and in Power GP Online so that now I can see that this will go to Excel. It also goes to a list of transactions. So we'll look at that. If I look at this customer and I click my go-to and I say view transactions, I can jump from that one navigation list to a navigation list of transactions for that customer. If I wanted, I could filter to say exclude any historic, so anything that's been moved to history. I can also put some filters in here and say where the status is. Just want open, which is what we already have. We don't want any work though. Filter. You can add another filter. You can come into here and say sales document status. And we only want ones that are complete. You could just kind of see if that makes any difference. But you can kind of see how we can layer some filters in here. And then you can kind of see, get rid of that one. I filtered too much, but you can kind of see how we can layer some filters in there. And now I've got my list. And from here, I can even, if I have everything set up, I could send this in an email. I could reprint those documents. If this was a sales transaction that wasn't already transferred from, it was an order, I could transfer it. It's grayed out right now because they're in invoice mode, but I could transfer them as well. So lots and lots of ways to get that information, or just take this list and put it out in Excel. So in just one click, you've got that out in Excel. And again, I can do that in Power GP Online as well. I have more test data over here. We're going to keep going. Okay. So the way we did that again was click on the drop-down. Once you name it, you pick customize, and then you click on action pane. Next. So this was some cool ideas for the navigation list action pane, and this was where I simplified, cleaned it up, made the buttons bigger, made the names. If you don't call it payment, you want to call it cash receipt, you could rename them, make it look like and act like what your users will feel comfortable with and what they'd like to see. So if you have somebody in your team that would feel more comfortable if it looked more like the system you came from, or made it the naming conventions in GP don't make sense to them. You can rename them. If you don't call your customers customers, you call them clients. You could change that to say client. There's lots of options. Next. The next thing that you can do in the setup for a navigation list is that you can adjust the sharing or the security. So when you create a new navigation list, by default, when I save this and I go down to customize, by default under sharing, it's going to be public. That's the default. If I want to say, no, this is private, only I'm allowed to see this navigation list, I just simply click this to private. Then any other user that logs in won't see that navigation list. By default, other users will see it, but I'm the only user that has access to modify or change it. So they'll see it, but what they're going to see is they're going to see this list, and for them it's going to act a lot like when I was on purchasing and I was on the one that just said vendors by itself. That's the basic out of the box one from GP. Theirs will say vendor list because that's the ones we just created, but it'll say read only. They can take it and they can do a save as and create their own list. So if they want to modify it or add filters or things like that, they can do that, but they're not messing with the one that you created, which is nice. Okay. Next. Okay. You can use navigation lists to run reports, and this works really, really well. So I'm going to do quite a few reports just to show you what I like about it. So I'm going to use my local just because I have a lot of data here on Power GP Online. I just haven't had time to put in a lot of test data. You guys will have a lot more data wherever you go. So we're going to click here. I've got my customers, and I want to run a report, and I'm going to sort this by balance, and I want to figure out why in the world do they have a credit balance. So they're not in the same class. They're not in the same, they don't have the same letters. They don't have the same salesperson. They just happen to right now today have a credit balance. So I check the box by those. I could have also done a filter just to show you something you could save. Add a filter where current balance is less than and includes negative 0.01. Oh, my number lock needs to be turned on. There we go. And I'm going to hit the little arrow. I've got my list. I might want to save that. So we're going to say customer center. And I don't need to say customer center on that. I could take that away. But for now, just for consistency, I might just leave it that way. Now I've got my customer center with the credit balance customers. I can mark all by clicking the top arrow. And I can hit reports, age trial balance, including details, and hit print. I'm going to just go to screen with this report. And you'll see now I have an aging that's specifically about those two customers. And you'll see at the top here, I'm going to make this bigger. Ranges, custom, 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 because it's all based on the navigation list. It's not a saved list. So you don't have to do some cuckoo crazy saved smart or age trial balance option. You could just filter that, run it, and now I can see here, okay, this is this customer, they have this credit balance of negative 58 cents. I can look at this customer and see that they have a credit balance there. So I can run that list right from inside of there. I can see those two balances there and then drill in and get more information. So that's something that I really like. Now that's for customers. Let's go to financial. Same kind of thing. Financial, pick my accounts. I can pick different accounts in here. So we're going to see here's my cash accounts. And where I put in user defined. So we're going to fix my filter. We're going to go into description. And we're going to say description contains cash. Now I've got all my cash accounts. Save my change because I wanted to fix that one. Hit the arrow at the top or the little checkbox at the top. Go to, I can put this in Excel. Reports, I can do a trial balance. I can pick the details or do summary. We'll do summary for now. Pick which year I'm running. I'm on my test company, so it's a funky year. Click OK. And now I've got a nice summary of those accounts. And I could run that for all kinds of things, for meals and entertainment, for my expenses based on account range. You can run all kinds of filters. I can also jump down, oh, because I have too many windows open. Okay, so if I come back and I go into account transactions, it's a little different, but I can see here's my account transactions, and I might want to run a list of anything that was done as a general journal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as, okay, so we're going to go here. I just saved that list. I'm going to add a filter. I don't need to see the column if I don't want, but I'm going to add a filter where my source document is GJ, which stands for General Journal. That's anything that was entered as a manual journal entry. It didn't originate from the subledger. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And you'll notice now I've only got things in 331, and it's only a couple journal entries. That's because at the top of the window, it's filtering to just the last 90 days. I can change this to the last year, the last 7 days, yesterday, custom dates. If I do custom date, I could say no start date, no end date, and click OK. And then this is going to run, and it's going to be all journal entries, future dated, because I have a wacky test company, past dated. I can see everything that's been done as a journal entry. I can double click on it, and I can see some journal entries that have been entered in my company. If I notice one that was wrong, I can check the box by it, and I can even do a back out and correct. So I could back this out, and this would actually reverse that journal entry. So it's acting almost like a void. So you can do that from the regular transactions screen, but the reason I like this is that I can do this very, very easily. I could filter, maybe I want anything where there's wrong dates or anything that was any kind of filter I needed. So you can use that to, again, run reports, run filters, run all of that. And again, I can run reports off of this, printing this list, or if I was on the record lines, I could run reports off of this. I can do similar for checkbooks. Click on checkbooks, and here's some cool things I can do here. Check this box, reports. I can print the list, or I can go to checkbook register or balance right from there as well. So I get a lot of options off those navigation lists. You can also, for payables, receivables, and general ledger, this can be a screen that replaces series post for those types of batches. So I can take this, and I could come into here and I can print the edit lists and get all my edit lists printed at the same time. If everything looks good, I can post all at the same time if I want as well. So you can use that navigation list very, very well for master records, so accounts, for employees, for vendors, for items. If I go into, we looked at sales and purchasing. Again, we can come into here, pull any of these lists. And as I showed, you can run reports or you can send the list of transactions. If I go into vendors, you get a similar option as well. If we go into inventory and I go into my items, if I pick my items, I can see my quantity available. There's my quantity there. And I can click reports, and I can do a stock status or a turnover report. And I can get a nice report very, very easily. And I've got that information listed right there. All done from the navigation list. Now for inventory, you'll see some extra things. I can assign and unassign sites in GP 2018 R2, which is coming soon to Power GP Online, I'm sure. It's coming soon if you're on premise. You could talk to Njevity about looking into upgrading. They're also going to have options for customers and vendors, and I believe accounts, to inactivate in bulk. So that'll be a new option under modify. So again, I can run these lists. I can run reports right here. You can see if I check this box. I've got the option to print trial balances, run reports from that window. So lots and lots of options at the top. I'm going to keep going. Now, if I did historical, I can pick the date to do as of so that I can run it in for historical if I needed. I can apply or remove holds, and I can do that for customers, for vendors, but I can also do it for documents, which is nice. If I come into here and we go into, let's see if I have any payables transactions. I can't remember if I did any over here. If not, we'll do it on my other company. So I don't have any transactions. We'll go ahead and create one just for kicks. We're going to create a transaction and then we're going to put it on hold. So just to show you how easy this will be. And we'll just go ahead and tab, say hello to you guys. I'll put my batch in there. I've got to add my batch. This is just going to be a one-time use batch, so I'm not going to make any recurring. And I'm just going to tab, and I'm going to come into here and say, I only have one vendor that fits that, so it auto-filled that for me, which is a nice feature here in Power GP Online. I'm going to put in my invoice number, and I'll put in my amount. Okay. I'm going to look at my distributions. And we'll pick an account for my other side. Okay, so one of the other things that I can do with Power GP Online is I can put part of the name of the account and then tab and it'll give me the list. I've got that filled. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. I'm going to save this. And it lets me know that they have an existing PO. I don't care. I'm going to go ahead and say continue because we want to go ahead and save it anyway. So we're going to save this. Oops, because I hit save twice, sorry. And we're going to close. Now that I've done that, I can go to my payables batches. And remember before that I could see that list of my batches. I'm going to go ahead and print my edit list. Just print this to screen. See if this pops up. If not, we can go ahead and open it. It's going to open up my Word. Now you can have it go to screen and not have to go through Word. I just had it use the Word version because I can turn off the grid lines and all that kind of stuff. But here's my edit list. There's no errors. Okay, that's good news. Now we're going to go back into GP and it's still checked. I can hit post. And we're going to go ahead and post. And then we're just going to refresh. Oh, and this is all my posting journals. I don't need those to print out. But we'll go ahead and close this. And we'll just delete these pop-ups, the yellow messages. If I come in here and refresh, it should be gone. Now, if I go to my payables transactions, let's say that we decided we're disputing that invoice or it has to be on hold for some reason. I can check the box and right here, apply a hold, refresh this, you can see, and now I've got a nice big red circle so I can see that that's on hold. I can put holds on individual transactions using navigation lists and I can manage them. So that's a great way to do that. One of the things that I had a client had an issue with was they had credit memos for customers or vendors, actually for vendors, that were for future transactions or for something special. And what happened is every time they did a check run, their person doing the checks was accidentally applying them. So what we did was we created a list here where we could say where the document type is credit memo. And we ran this, apply the filter here. There's nothing that's going to come up on mine. And then what we did was we started putting those on hold. And what we did was we kept them on hold until they were ready to be applied. So it made it much, much easier for them to manage. Okay, we're going to keep going. Okay. So applying hold can be done for payables, receivables, and receivables transactions. It can also be done for sales order processing transactions. So if I come into my list here, and again, this works on both Power GP Online and local GP, I'm going to pull my list. So I can see that these are on hold, but they're a special type of hold. I'm going to double click on one and show you. I have this red stop sign. If you're on GP 2018 or higher, you'll see a red stop sign here. In an older version, you might see a hold down here. These are on hold because this customer is past due. I have that set up as an automatic hold on my order type, past due. So when they get created, when they save the order, it looks at this customer, it sees that they're past due, and it puts it on auto hold. What that hold will do is prevent, we look at the setup here. It's preventing that transaction from transferring from order to invoice, from printing, from posting, from fulfilling. It's just basically stopping that, which is really nice. If you're doing any kind of sales transactions, that's a special kind of hold called a process hold. Now, looking at this, though, I don't know why they're on hold unless I add a column. So I created a navigation list called sales order transactions with process hold, and I added that column. So the same as we were doing before, we came up here, customize, and in our columns, one is process hold, which is down here. Okay, and that'll let you see that. And then I can actually remove those holds up here. I can actually apply them from here as well. So you've got management of your holds done through the navigation lists. Okay. Next. The preview pane is really nice, and it kicks in and it does a lot of really cool things when it's looking at line item things on sales transactions and PO transactions. When you're looking at customers or vendors, you can also see a preview for the quantity or the last date of payment, that type of thing. If you're looking at items, your preview pane will also give you information. So I can come here, click on my items, click here, and I can see here quantity on hand, quantity allocated. I can see all of that information. I can also see category information. I can also see the item type information. So there's lots of previews there. But when I get to something like a sales transaction, or I'm going to do purchasing, just because I want you to see some cool stuff. I have a list called my open PO list. My status is new, released, or change order, and I can see my POs. And I want to look at what's on the PO. As I click on each line, I can see what's on that PO. So if I click on one of these POs and I check the box here, it lights up at the top and I can receive the items. I'm going to do that over on Power GP Online because I have a PO ready to go. So we're going to click on here, PO transactions. And now I've got my PO and you can see my preview at the bottom. I've got some red shirts and some yellow shirts. We're going to check the box here. And now I'm going to receive. I can receive, or I can receive an invoice, or I can copy to a new PO. We're going to copy to a new PO first. It pops up like this, and I can change the vendor if I have multiple vendors that I order from. If they're assigned to that item, it would be very easy. Right now, I just have one vendor that's assigned to these items, so I'm going to order the same items. My next PO, I might date this for the 28th, and I'm going to actually say that this is going to use a different site, so I could pick a different site if I had multiple sites. I think I just have one, so we'll use the main. I can also say what the required date is. We're not going to order it till the 28th, so I'm going to say it's not going to be required until December 20th. I'm going to talk to the vendor, and they're going to say, well, we'll try to get it to you by December 18th because we'll put it on the trucks by December 15th. Well, that's a Saturday, but hey, maybe 14th. We'll do 14th. I can also pick which items are copied. I can also choose if I'm copying freight. I can also choose what cost I'm pulling. I'll pull the cost from the original PO. I'm going to hit preview because that'll show me what it's going to do. And I can adjust this as well. So if this time when I order it, I want to order 350. And because I'm ordering more, they're lowering the cost to $225. And for this one, we're going to only order 10. And since we did that, they're going to up that to $1.75. So I have a ability to adjust them as well, and then hit copy. And I've got a brand new PO with my new cost, my new dates, and I'm done with that. We're going to save this, and we're going to close. Okay. It's thinking, I believe in you, little computer. Hit close, and we're going to refresh just because I want you to see what it looks like with the second PO. Oh, and you know what? This is last 90 days. We need to fix my filter because I'm not seeing it because it's future dated. No end date. We'll go ahead and click that. And now I've got both POs. Well, this first PO comes in. I want to receive it. So we're going to receive the items. It's going to pop up on my screen. And I have the option in the second screen that pops up to say if I received full quantity, maybe they short shipped or they over shipped, I can adjust that as well. In this case, we're just going to say it was regular. We're going to hit receive. And I got all of that from a navigation list. So you're dealing with someone who's doing purchasing, not having to find the PO, not having to enter those numbers. They're just checking a box and hitting receive. So it makes it very, very, very easy for them to work. Okay. Next. For GL accounts, again, you can filter based on the columns listed. So we're going to come into GP or into Power GP Online and take a look at my accounts. Just clicking on my area pages and going to financial. Pick on my accounts. It's going to auto fill this with my chart of accounts. And I'm going to hit my column and I'm going to say save as. And we're going to say balance sheet accounts and click OK. So I've got that new list saved. We're going to add a filter where, and we'll go in here and we could filter it by the main segment, account type, and we could say is a posting account, and then I can run filters for account number or main segment. I can do all kinds of different filters in here as well. Okay, so I've got my list. We'll just take away this filter, and I'm not going to filter yet for balance sheet, but I'm just going to show you that I can check these boxes, and again, jump to a detail inquiry or summary inquiry, print my trial balance. All of those things can be done right from that navigation list. Next. We did this one already where we copied and we received a PO, and I did that under that purchasing navigation pane and the purchase order transactions. And now we can also look at report lists. What I like about this is if you haven't used My Reports before, the feature called My Reports, this is a great way to get your items into My Reports. So I'm going to go into Power GP Online, and I'm going to click on, we'll do this under purchasing. We'll do it under purchasing. I like doing AP. We'll save my little change there. I got a prompt to save, which is good. I'm going to click on my report list. So this is going to load all of the different kinds of reports. I'm going to hit get more data to get all those report lists to show. And I can see all of my different reports. And if I have one already set up that I like, I just check the box by that report. I can edit it just to make sure I like the way that it's set up. Sorting by vendor name, perfect. Current date, yes. In detail, perfect. I want to add that to my reports. So I'm going to click up here. I'm going to uncheck and recheck it. We'll do this again. Oh, I already have it in my reports. So we'll pick summary just because the other, you don't get to see it unless I check one that's not in my reports. So here's my summary. Again, review the edit option, the report option here. Okay, that looks good. I actually want to do it by vendor name, so we'll do that. And we'll save that change. When I'm in that screen, I have the option here to add it to my reports right here. But if I want to add it to my reports and I'm not in that screen, I have an add to right from there. And we're going to say this is an AP aging current / summary. And I'm going to click OK. Now, if I wanted to, I can also pull things from SmartList or SQL reports or live Excel reports. I can find these reports listed and I can go, okay, here's one that I like, received not invoiced, and I'm going to click on it, and you'll see down here at the bottom it says it's a smart list. I'm going to check the box here, add to, and I've got this, and I might at the top say smart list dash, so I know it's a smart list, and click OK. Now if I go back to my home page, you'll see that I have that listed, those listed in my reports. And what I like about my reports is it's literally a one click, and it's going to run that report. It's going to generate that report right to my screen without me having to go purchasing, reports, trial balance, age trial balance with options, click on it, hit insert, hit print. It's a one click as opposed to 5 clicks. But what I liked about the navigation list is I could use that to add them to the My Reports option. Okay. Next. We've got about 10 minutes and I have more tips I can show you, but I just wanted to, before if anybody has to jump off any time earlier, we are going to be doing a year-end closing workshop. If you register for the year-end closing workshop, and I'll show you how to get to that on the Njevity website in a second, you will be getting a copy of the workbook that I did. So as a sneak preview, I'm just going to show you what that looks like because I have it on my computer because I wrote it. So here's the workbook. And you'll see here's the table of contents. There's sections for the core modules of GP as well as sales orders, purchase orders, inventory, and fixed assets. But what is nice about the book is that it has a good overview and then it has a lot of checklists, places to write information in. If we get into something like, try to find one that's a good one. If you read really fast, you don't have to buy the book. Haha, you can just see it. But you can see here I've got nice places to help you learn how to balance, when to back up, what reports to use. So lots and lots of information. And again, you'll get a hard copy shipped to you so that you can use that and write in the book your own tips and tricks or your own issues or things that you need to deal with for year end. So that's coming up in on December 12th. If you haven't registered, there's still room in the class. It'll be similar to today where we'll do a webinar like today. You guys will have the workbook so that you could write in the workbook any extra tips that I might throw in for you. There's a lot of how-tos in that in the workbook and in the workshop about using smart lists and navigation lists and account roll-ups and ways to get information. So we're going to take a look real quick on the Njevity site just so you guys can see. Oops. Njevity. There we go. So if we go to the Njevity and we go to the events, that's where it's listed. And you can see here, if we go to the webinar, you just click that. And you'll see when it comes up, you can register. There you go. And you can register on there and you'll get everything in there. So there's me. If I want to register, I can fill it out. Okay, so we're going to keep going. The other things I want to show you a few things with the navigation list. So we can come back over. So I've got my list here. Again, I have that ability to copy. If I come over into my sales and I come into, if anybody's using sales order processing, this is again a nice way to do stuff. Gonna come over here. Pardon me. And we're gonna click on this. I'll pick one that's not $0. That would be a stupid one to use. I can take this and I can email out a packing slip. I can print my picking ticket, print my packing slip, and I can also allocate and fulfill if it hasn't been allocated and fulfilled right from here. And everything's been allocated, so that's okay. And we're going to go ahead and transfer. I get my same pop-up screen that I would have from the other screen, but I could have done this in bulk. We're going to transfer. And then we'll see if there's any errors. Now, again, I'm blindly doing a test, so we'll see if it worked. It did, which is wonderful. So now I've got that order was transferred to invoice number, and it transferred successfully. Now, I can also take this, and we're going to do a filter. We're going to change this over to invoice. I'm going to try something out. So I've got my invoices here. And again, I can check up here. I can print them. I can post them. I can allocate or fulfill. I can apply a hold if I wanted. I can edit as well. So now I've got this, and because that's an unposted, I'm able to edit. If it was posted, obviously I wouldn't be able to click edit on those as well. Okay. So I've got that off of that navigation list at the top. With Power GP Online, you do have access to, we're going to get back over here. We do have access to using Smart List Builder depending on the subscription that you have. So we could look into seeing if there's other ways you can adjust those. But for now, we're just sticking with the ones that are straight out of the box and how I can add those over here, those lists over in that side shortcut bar. We're going to click this and navigation pane options, and I can turn off and on, move things around for what options I have on the area pages. Go back over here. Okay, so we're going to go back over. Now again, they also work for employees. I don't do a lot of employee training, but it does work for them as well. If you click here, we'll see if I have any test employees. I don't have any test employees, but I could create one. I could just click employee here, and I would jump right to the employee entry screen, and then that would save in those lists. And you can see here that I can do, once I have an employee, I can do inquiries, I can do HR, and I can also do information for them right there. So it works for a lot of different things. If anybody has any questions, we have a couple minutes. You can type them into the questions. I want to make sure you guys do that. If you don't have questions, I'll just keep showing you a couple other tips, and we'll end in about 4 minutes. So if there's no questions, I'll keep talking. If there is questions, I will definitely stop and take those questions. Again, anything to do with navigation lists, just to review, you click on the list. If it says read only, you're going to have to save it first, and then you can make changes. You can do transactions right from there, and if you have one checked, you'll see different things are lit up. Right now I can apply documents. Oh, I've got a question. Yay, I love questions. Okay, and I've got to hit the right button to see the question. Hold on, where'd you go, little question? See if I can go back and get it to come up. Hit the button. It says someone raised their hand, so I think that means you want to be unmuted. I'm going to try to see if I can figure out who raised their hand. Mary. Let's see if, oh, Mary did raise her hand, but I don't know how to unmute you. So Mary, can you type your question in? Oh, here she's got a question. Reports are grayed out. Why would and go to are grayed out? Why would that be? Okay, so I'll show you. Until you check the box, things are going to be grayed out. So watch, if I leave it unchecked, it's grayed out. If I click it again, it's going to light up. If you have more than one selected, some things will gray out. So see how right now apply is lit up, applied grays out. The reason is that the apply actually jumps to the apply window. I'll show you that on my local since I have a lot of activity there. So I've got my list. I'm going to check the box. Apply is lit up, reports are lit up. Uncheck my box, grays out. And if I try to do reports, they're grayed out here, so I won't be able to run any. When I check the box by one, I have the option to apply because I can jump right to the apply window. This happens to have no unapplied documents, but I could jump right there. When I check more than one, it won't let me because that wouldn't open that window. I also, if I click on order, it'll open the window, but it won't autofill. If I have one selected, when I click on the window, it autofills that customer ID. If I was on a vendor, it would open the vendor ID. So hopefully that answers your question. They gray out. Some are grayed out if nothing is selected. Some get grayed out if more than one is selected. I've made a mistake where I checked one here and I start moving down and then I want to do one for Crawford's Inc. And I'm like, why is it grayed out? And then I realize, oh, two are selected. So then you have to come back and you have to unclick. Okay. Perfect. So Mary, I'm glad that answered your question. So hopefully this gave you guys a good overview of navigation lists. Again, my name's Amber. Thank you for your question and answer section. If you have any questions or comments, if you loved today or you wished it would have covered something that we didn't cover, or you'd like more information about other features that you think are hidden gems in GP, make sure and send an email to Melissa Dobkins, so mdobkins, Dobkins, at njevity.com. If you are interested in attending the year-end closing, make sure you get registered for that. If you have questions about that or concerns about that, again, just drop an email to Melissa. I work with the team here at Njevity. I have a lot of respect for their team. They have a lot of really, really amazing people. So I'm excited to be part of their team and helping you guys out to learn more about GP. Thank you so much for attending, and I hope you have a great day.